when you are keeping many antennas in a small confined space, then automatically the natural problems like mutual coupling and interference between the antennas, those particular problems are coming. And RF engineers or microwave engineers has to deal with this problem, because the MIMO concept, when it was started, when it was first stated, the communication engineers has proved that concept by assuming that there is no mutual coupling between these antennas placed either on the transmitter side or on the receiver side. But as an RF engineer or as a microwave engineer, we need to ensure that that particular criteria is exactly meeting while implementing the MIMO communication system. But it is absolutely not possible, because from general electromagnetics, we know that when number of radiating systems are confined in a small space, automatically you will have interference, and you will have a mutual coupling between those radiators. And specifically, this problem becomes more dangerous when your electronic device is of very small in size. Meaning, for example, if you see in a suppose cellular communication system, on the base station side, you have enough space, right? So you can use multiple antennas there. But what about the user side? If you see user side who is having a cell phone, in that small device, I need to fix number of antennas in order to implement the MIMO communication system effectively. Okay. So first of all, the device is small, so very limited space is there for fixing a single antenna. So natural question is, how should I fix number of antennas in those handheld devices, and that too without having any mutual interference. Okay. So that is the basic idea of the today's discussion. Okay. So before discussing the actual topic, first we will discuss something about the other forms of communication system that are available. Then we will go for this actual topic. Okay, so can you see the channel capacity slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the expression for the channel capacity, the Shannon-Nyquist criteria, a very well-known equation to find out the bandwidth limited additive wide Gaussian noise channel. And from this, we can find that the channel capacity can be increased with the bandwidth. Okay, so if you have large bandwidth, you can transmit huge amount of data. Okay. So based on this particular concept, the engineers are trying to have as more as possible bandwidth for a specific application. Okay, but there is a problem again. Why? Because for every wireless communication system, the bandwidth is fixed. You can't use a bandwidth which is beyond the allocated one. Okay, so there is a restriction on W. So naturally, there will be restrictions on C, channel capacity. So if you see for enhancing this capacity, channel capacity, in order to transmit more amount of data, or in order to have high data rate, in last decade, two specific methods were expressed. One is your UWB communication system, ultra wideband communication system, and this one, the multiple input, multiple output communication system. Okay. So first we will discuss briefly about UWB communication system. Let us see what exactly the problem that we are going to face while implementing UWB. Then we will discuss about the MIMO communication system. So as I told you, from that channel capacity equation, if you have more and more bandwidth, you can enhance that C, channel capacity. Okay. So based on that particular fact, FCC has recommended this particular frequency range, 3.1 to 10.6 gigahertz frequency range, for having a wireless communication system for data transmission. And as you know, this particular frequency range, it is having the other communication bands also, right? So no doubt it's a large frequency range or large bandwidth, but the main demerit is because other communication systems are also there in this large frequency range. So we need to have a specific criteria in order to implement UWB communication system. Okay. What are the advantages of this UWB system? Because of large bandwidth, you can achieve high data rate, and the consumption of less average power, okay, compared to other wireless communication systems. In UWB, the power consumption is less. We will see that why. Low system complexity and cost, because the antennas can be implemented easily. So that's why the system complexity is less. So if you compare this with the narrowband communication system with the ultra wideband communication system, in the diagram you can see that in narrowband communication system you are using a continuous sinusoidal waveform, and in order to transmit the symbols 1 and 0, you can use two specific frequencies of this sinusoidal waveform. So in frequency domain, if you see, you will get a very narrow frequency range. But what exactly is happening in this ultra-wideband communication system? Instead of having continuous sinusoidal waveforms, you are using small, narrow time domain pulses to transmit ones and zeros. Okay. Because in time domain you have compressed the signal in order to have a pulse, so naturally in frequency domain you will get a very large frequency range. You can mark the frequency domain representation of the signal. So you can mark the large frequency range of the signal. So because it is this particular frequency range is covering other frequencies, other wireless communication systems also, what the communication engineers they proposed that they kept the power level of this UWB system very low, right? So if you see this diagram is an indoor-outdoor power spectral density emission masks specified by the FCC. So FCC has specified that the power level of this UWB system should not go beyond this level, right? You can mark that dBm per megahertz, it's minus 40, it's minus 75. So the power level of, although it is having a large frequency range, but the power level should remain within this range. So the scenario is something like this: you have a large frequency range, but this is representing your UWB communication frequency range. But in that particular frequency range, other wireless communication bands are coming. So that's why they have specified the power level of this UWB communication system, which is lesser, even lesser than the noise floor of this other wireless communication system. So the chances of interference with the other signals, other communication bands can be minimized. Okay. But as you know, once you have a frequency band, automatically you will have because the interference cannot be reduced to zero, because you will have even if the power level of the UWB system is less, but because the frequencies are matching, so there remains always a chance that the frequency bands will interfere with each other while transmission. Okay. In-band interference signal processing is computationally expensive or beyond current DSP. Meaning is when you are transmitting an UWB signal from the transmitter to the receiver, because of the presence of other wireless bands in that particular frequency range. So what we need to do, we need to apply some signal processing technique to remove those interfering bands, right? So one method is at the receiving end, you need to apply the signal processing technique to remove those interfering bands. That is one method. Okay, but if you see from DSP point of view, digital signal processing point of view, the process is very much expensive. Okay. The other method of removing these interfering bands is better use a band notch behavior at the interference band. Okay, that means at a frequency where you are expecting that a particular frequency range is going to interfere with the original UWB communication system. At that particular point, if it is possible to create a band notch or a stop band at that particular point, then we can effectively implement this UWB system. So, based on that one, what people have suggested that design a source pulse, because in UWB signal you need to transmit short time pulses. So the concept is you design the shape of the pulse in such a way so that when you observe its frequency domain representation, it should have a range of frequency where it is blocking, or it should have very less PSD in that particular frequency range. In the diagram, you can see that suppose you want a drop a particular frequency range or a block a particular frequency range. So one concept is you give a shape, because see, when you are using UWB, you can transmit pulses, so you can give a specific shape to that pulse. You can use a triangular pulse, you can use a sinusoidal pulse, right? Rectangular pulse. So when time domain you are changing the pulse shape, the frequency domain, the shape will also change. So one concept is in time domain you give a specific shape to that pulse so that when you observe the frequency domain of that one, it should have a gap in that frequency range. Okay, no doubt mathematically it is possible, but the implementation is very much complex. Okay, but this is one solution of implementing UWB effectively. What are the other solutions? Instead of that, at antenna level, we can have this type of band notch procedure. What is that? Suppose you have the UWB antenna having this particular reflection coefficient plot. In addition to that UWB antenna, in order to suppress a particular frequency range, in addition to the antenna, you use other resonating structure in the antenna itself, and the behavior of this resonating structure should be such that it should have the capability of blocking a particular frequency, or in other words, the overall antenna should have a band notch behavior. Okay, so at antenna level, these things can be implemented compared to your signal processing technique. This particular antenna technique is easy. So what are the different type of band notch techniques that have been used? If you study the literature of UWB antennas, you can see that these are the different type of band notch techniques that have been used. These are one group of techniques. The first group, where adding a perturbation in the antenna's radiating part. In the radiating part itself, another resonator have been used so to block a particular frequency. frequency range. Okay. What are the next methods? Second group, these methods, you can mark that the perturbation on the antenna feed line and the ground. In the feed line and the ground, you can mark the presence of other resonators to block a particular frequency. And these are the third set of methods. Okay, use of parasitic resonators near the radiating element. Okay, not exactly in the radiating element, but near the radiating element. So these are the methods that have been used to suppress the interference from the other wireless communication systems while implementing UWB communication system. Okay. Now, what exactly is happening? No doubt, it is suppressing the specific frequency range. But if you see the physics behind this, as if one person is going in a very fast speed, suddenly you are blocking that particular person. So the speed is coming to 0. You are giving some time. Then again, you are telling him to go in that fast speed, right? Something like that is happening. Okay? You have a large frequency range. Suddenly, you are blocking a particular frequency. Then again, you are allowing the large frequency range. Okay. So at that particular point where you are blocking that frequency, the corresponding energy is actually stored. Okay. So it is a radiator. You are blocking particular portion of frequency. So that particular energy is not radiating, but it is stored, right? But where will that particular stored energy will go? Gradually, it will dissipate. So when it is gradually dissipating, what exactly is happening? If you observe its time domain response, so from the transmitter, you are sending a specific time pulse. But when you are observing, because in the process of blocking a particular frequency range, if you observe the time domain pulse at the receiving end, you will find that its shape is no longer the same shape that you have transmitted from the transmitting end. That is something else. Why there is a distortion in the pulse shape? Because of the gradual decaying of that stored energy. Gradual decaying of that stored energy. Okay. So to analyze that one.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. Once again, you repeat, sir, that physics behind that Banach characteristics. Sorry, yes, sir. Once again.
Sure. See, if you see the frequency response of the UWB communication system, it's a large frequency band, right? And so the antenna should radiate. Effectively, the antenna, when you are using an UWB antenna, we are expecting that the antenna should radiate in that large frequency range, right? Because to reduce the interference in a particular frequency range at the antenna level, we are trying to suppress that particular interference. What does it mean? What exactly we are doing? In addition to that UWB antenna, we are using another resonator in that antenna itself, so that the extra resonator that you are using, it will have the effect of blocking that frequency range. Okay. So basically, there are two resonators. If you see from antenna point of view, one resonator is trying to radiate in large frequency range. Another resonator is trying to block a particular frequency range. Okay. So No doubt the second resonator is blocking that frequency range, but what does it mean? That means the antenna has not radiated that much amount of power or that much amount of energy. So where that particular energy will go, right? So that energy is actually stored in the antenna itself, and it is gradually dissipate. It will gradually dissipate. Okay? Because the stored power has to go somewhere, right? So when it is gradually dissipating, what does it mean? In frequency domain, we were observing, you have a large frequency band, you have a block there. So the corresponding time domain response will also change when in the frequency domain it is dissipating the power. In time domain, the shape of the pulse will also change. It will have effect on the shape of that particular pulse. Okay. So because of that, you are going to get the ringing effect. You will have suppose you are transmitting a triangular pulse. So instead of a single triangular pulse, you will have number of small triangular pulses in that time domain. If you see that time domain pulse, okay, we'll see that one.
Okay, sir. Sir, how to find out that slot width and length depends on frequency, sir?
Sorry, come again.
Sir, that we are constructing that resonant antenna, sir. We are cutting from some portion from that antenna. Sir, how to find out that length, width, and also and place where I want to place that?
Yeah, I will come to that. I will come to that. If you see, if you study the literature, mostly this type of things have been used to block that particular frequency. Okay. Now the question is how to find out the dimensions of the other resonator. Is that the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the size of the other resonator will depend to like at which particular frequency you want to block. It will depend on that one.
Sir, for example, most of them they are using for 2.45 gigahertz. We have to block that particular frequency. 2.45 means.
Right.
Then how to find out that?
Find out the corresponding lambda.
Okay, sir.
Find out the corresponding lambda, and your resonator side, the size should be of the order of lambda by 2. Then you, by trial error method, initially you fix the length to lambda by 2. Then roughly you will reach to that particular blocking frequency. Then in the simulator, by trial error method, you fix the other dimensions.
Okay, sir.
But the overall size will match with lambda by 2.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. So, in order to analyze this one, this particular behavior of band notch technique, in order to investigate their impact on the transmitted pulse, what we did, we took 3 different UWB antennas, and we tried to block a particular frequency by 3 different methods. Now here you can see that the other resonator is used in the radiator itself. Here we have used this particular portion to place the other resonator. Here the other resonator shape is different one. Okay. So all the three antennas, if you see, and this is the ground plane. Okay. Now if you see the corresponding S parameters of these 3 antennas, suppose this is antenna A, this is B, and this is C, you can mark that the responses are this one. Black one is your response for antenna A, red is for B, and blue is for C. Now you can mark all the 3 no doubt that they are working in the UWB frequency range, but at the same time, they are also blocking a specific frequency. All the three antennas are blocking the same frequency, right? So all are UWB antennas, all the antennas are capable of blocking that particular frequency. So now the question is, for field application, which particular antenna I need to choose? Because when I am observing its frequency domain response, all are working, all are satisfying all the properties. Okay, but that is not enough as far as UWB antennas are there. What I need to do? Okay, this is the surface current distribution. Everything is okay. If you see, if this is the pulse, time domain pulse I want to transmit, but when I am observing at the receiving end, antenna A is giving me this type of pulse shape, antenna B is giving me this type of pulse shape, antenna C is giving me this type of shape. So I sent this signal, now I am receiving either this signal or this from three different antennas. Although when I am observing the frequency domain response of all the three, all are giving me the same behavior. So this is when you are keeping the transmitting and receiving antennas face-to-face form. Okay. If you are keeping the antennas side by side for the same pulse, I am getting three different responses from three different antennas. Now the question is, which particular antenna I need to choose for my application? Naturally, I will choose the antenna for which the received pulse is matching with the input transmitted pulse. Okay. So mathematically, you can also find out what is the similarity between the received pulse and the transmitted pulse, and for which you are finding a large matching, or if the matching is maximum, then you choose that particular antenna for your application. Now the point here is, as far as UWB antennas are concerned, only frequency domain response is not enough. You need to see the time domain response also. Okay. So these are the received pulses for one side by side and one face to face. So I need to find out the system fidelity factor. So where the values, when these are nearly equal to 1, that means they are perfectly matching input transmitted pulse and the output received pulse. So depending on these values, you choose the antenna for your application. Okay. So that although the UWB concept was devised for having a high data rate transmission between this transmitter and receiver side, but the problem of having a UWB communication system are these ones. The major problem is only observation of the frequency domain pulse is not enough. You need to see its time domain behavior also. And by taking one example, we verified that although in frequency domain all the three different antennas are giving the same response, but when you observe its in time domain, its response is changing. Okay. So that was one concept that has been used for high data rate transmission. Another concept that was proposed was multiple input, multiple output communication system. Okay. So let us discuss this one. So in the diagram you can see a typical urban area, and a user using a cell phone is not only getting the signal, direct signal from, if there is a direct path available from the base station to the user, then it will get the direct signal. But in a typical urban area, it is absolutely not possible to have a direct path between the base station antenna and the receiver antenna. So the signal that you are getting is basically a multiple reflected, multiple diffracted signal. Okay. So because of this multipath propagation, if these signals are meeting in phase at the receiver point, then you will get a sufficient output at the receiver point. But if they are meeting out of phase, even if you are getting multiple copies of the signal, you are not going to get anything as the output of the receiver. Okay, if they are meeting, the signals are meeting out of phase. So basically, what exactly is happening, because of the time variation of different signals reaching at the receiver point, that creates the fading or the variation in signal to noise ratio. So you can recall that the capacity equation. So it is dependent on that SNR also. So when SNR is varying, automatically it will affect the capacity also. Okay. So this is a typical urban area situation. And we have already heard this particular things, time diversity and frequency diversity. You can use different time slots to transmit signals, or you can use different frequencies to transmit the signals. But as far as MIMO concept is concerned, it is using the space diversity. What exactly is that one? It uses antennas located in different positions. So space-wise, they are separated. Okay. So it uses antennas located in different positions to take advantage of different radio paths that exist in a typical terrestrial environment. So basically, the MIMO concept is taking that multipath propagation as an advantage. So multiple input, multiple output, that means on the transmitter side as well as on the receiver side, you can use multiple antennas. So you can have a 2x2 MIMO system, 2 antennas on the receiver side, 2 antennas on the transmitter side, and similarly you can have other categories of MIMO system. Now, what is the working principle? It takes advantage of that multipath. Although we know that if the signals are reaching out of phase at the receiver point, it will nullify the total signal, or the output from the receiver becomes 0. But as far as MIMO concept is concerned, it takes advantage of that multipath propagation. So it uses multiple antennas to send multiple parallel signals, and particularly in an urban environment, because in a rural area there is always a possibility of getting a direct path between the controlling station and the user antenna. Okay, but specifically in urban environment, these signals will bounce up from different obstacles and continue on their way to the receiver point. So as far as this MIMO concept is there, the receiving end uses an algorithm or special signal processing to sort out the multiple signals to produce one signal that has the originally transmitted data. Because multiple signals are used both at the transmitting end and the receiving end, so you are getting multiple copies of the same signal, but having different characteristics in the sense that different signals are covering different path lengths to reach to the receiver point. So at the receiver point, you need to use the signal processing technique to find out the original transmitted data. Okay, so that was the basic concept. Now, why this system is better as compared to your single input, single output channel? Because in single input, single output channels, your capacity is given by this one, the capacity equation that we have observed in the VCR slide. But in MIMO case, it uses the same power as that of the single input, single output. So the power usage is same, but the greatest benefit of having this MIMO is capacity varies linearly with number of antennas. So if you can use, if your system is allowing to use more and more number of antennas, so you can enhance the capacity to a large extent. That is the idea. So graphically, if you see in a single input, multiple output or multiple input, single output system, the capacity variation with respect to number of antenna elements is logarithmic in nature. Whereas in a MIMO system, the channel capacity is increasing linearly. Okay, so you can enhance your channel capacity. That is the benefit of using MIMO system. Okay. So that was the communication system behind the MIMO concept. Okay. So as I told you, in this system, you are using different antennas, or they are separated by certain distance. Okay. And those who are working in antenna field, they must be knowing that the major focus is to use circularly polarized antennas. Why? Because if your antenna is a circularly polarized one, so during transmission, because the transmitted signals, they are subjected to number of refractions, number of diffractions. So there is always a chance of having a changed polarization from transmitter. Suppose you have transmitted a specific polarized signal, but while reaching at the receiver point, it is the polarization may change. Okay. So if you use a circularly polarized antenna at the receiver point, whatever may be the orientation of your antenna, or whatever may be the polarization state of your incoming signal, the receiving antenna is going to receive part of the signal, okay, because of the circularly polarized nature of, because it is having a X component, Y component. So whatever may be the orientation of the incoming signal, you are going to get some part of that at the receiver point. So the focus is mostly on circularly polarized antennas. And as I told you, in MIMO concept, the antennas has to be placed at a specific distance. And again, from the general electromagnetic concept, we know that the minimum distance between two antennas should be of the order of lambda or lambda by 2 to have minimum interference, or the mutual coupling between them can be reduced. So while implementing this concept, you need to take care of all those things, because I need to use multiple antennas. Okay, I need to fix that in a confined space. Okay, so as we've discussed in the beginning, that if enough space is there, no doubt you can maintain that lambda by 2 distance between the antennas. No doubt you can use multiple, many number of antennas, but as you know, the size of the electronics, particularly involved that are involved in wireless communication system, the size is decreasing every day. Now you are having almost all wireless devices, handheld devices. So basically, we need to find out a way to fix this number of antennas in that confined space. Otherwise, even if you use multiple antennas, if you are not satisfying this, if your antenna's placement is not satisfying this basic electromagnetic laws, then you are not going to get the benefit of MIMO. Okay. So the basic MIMO concept was devised by assuming that there is no mutual coupling between the adjacent antennas. Okay. So if you are if your system is not satisfying that one, you will not get the benefit of MIMO. Okay. So the motivation of attempting this particular work is this one. Suppose you have a 2 antenna system. So basic electromagnetics says that the minimum separation should be lambda g by 2, guided wavelength by 2 between these 2 antennas to have minimum mutual coupling between these 2. Suppose your antenna 1, this is antenna 2, you have fed antenna 1 by a feeding, and you have fed antenna 2 by a separate feeding. But as per theory, the distance should be lambda g by 2. Okay. So as you know, if you are trying to implement a MIMO system for a low frequency signal. So in a low frequency signal, automatically this the distance will also increase. Okay. So in all cases, it is not always possible to place the antennas in large separated distance, right? Instead, if it is possible to use a single antenna, but if you give both the feeds to this single antenna, then by some means, if you create if you nullify the mutual coupling between these two feed lines, right, or if you can nullify the electromagnetic response of the antenna that is coming from feed 1 and feed 2, then this particular system can also work as a two antenna system. Okay, although physically it is a single antenna, this can also work as a two antenna system. Okay. So there are different techniques to implement that one. For example, you can use these diversity schemes. What are those diversity schemes? You can use a pattern diversity scheme, meaning for one feeding, suppose the antenna is radiating on one side. For the second feeding, it is suppose radiating in other side. That means the two radiation patterns, if they are not overlapping with each other, then you will not have interference. Okay. Similarly, you can have polarization diversity scheme can be used. So from basic electromagnetics, we know that if the polarizations are orthogonal to each other, then even the frequencies are same, they will not interfere with each other if the polarizations are orthogonal to each other. Okay. For example, if you have a horizontally polarized signal and a vertically polarized signal, you can use those two polarizations to transmit the signal simultaneously, having the same frequency. They will not overlap with each other. So those diversity schemes can be used in this second system, specifically in devices where you don't have sufficient space. Okay, don't need to use two separate antennas, physically separate antennas. Instead, you can use a single antenna, but with the help of these diversity schemes, this antenna can be used as a multiple antenna system. Okay. This is you can see that this is the transmitting antenna, this is the receiving antenna, and because of two different feeds to this antenna, one is radiating in a LSCP mode, left-handed circularly polarized, another is radiating in a RSCP mode. So even if you want to send multiple datas using the same frequency but with two different polarizations, and these two are orthogonal polarized signals, so they will not interfere. Okay. So based on this particular concept, just a second, let me have some water. So, in order to show the effectiveness of this particular procedure of implementation of MIMO, we attempted some work, and as far as this today's discussion is concerned, I'm going to present two typical results, so that you will get an idea. Our aim was to have this particular frequency range, okay, and we used this polarization diversity concept. Okay, single antenna, but that single antenna is having the capability of producing both LSCP and RSCP. Okay, so as in the diagram we saw that if you are trying to send signals using these two different polarizations, they will not overlap with each other because of the orthogonality. So this is that planar antenna. First feed. This is the antenna shape. It's a microstrip planar antenna, and one feed port and the other feed port. Feed port number 1, feed port number 2. As we know, because of the nature of the feeding, it will create a circularly polarized signal. Okay, so because of this feed, you will get one type of circularly polarized signal, and because of this feed, second feed, you will get other one. So for feed 1, if you are getting LSCP, for feed 2, you will get RSCP. Okay. So from this, you can mark that there is no direct contact between the feed line and the antenna, because separately you can optimize the different dimensions of the feed to have a perfect circularly polarized signal. So because of this feed, it will create a X component of electric field, Y component of the electric field. Similarly, for the second feed, you have electric field X component, electric field Y component on the antenna surface. Now, so you have a radiating system. Okay, it's an antenna radiating system, but that is connected to two different feed points. So what are the possibilities of having interference? One coupling will come from the radiated field components. So because of feed 1, it is radiating in one specific way. Because of feed 2, the antenna is radiating in another specific way. So there is a possibility of interference between those two radiated fields. What is the other possibility of interference or coupling? Coupling of induced surface current components, because you have placed two feed lines very close to each other. So there is always a possibility of interference between these two ports. Okay. So these are the two possibilities of having coupling. So because already we know that the radiated field, one is LSCP, another is RSCP, they will not interfere with each other. But what about the other coupling? The surface current coupling is dominant. The coupling between the two feed lines. Okay. So there is no radiated field coupling because of the nature of the radiated fields, but we need to nullify this surface current coupling between these two feed ports. If you do that, then this single antenna can effectively work as two different antennas, but because it is capable of radiating in two different ways. One is LSCP way, another is RSCP way. Okay. So there are different methods available. If you study the literature, you will find different isolation enhancement techniques you will find. Okay. What are those? One is you can use these seeds or slots between two radiators. See, this is monopole 1, monopole 2, and you can use this type of slots to reduce or to enhance the isolation, or to reduce the coupling. You can use metamaterials between two radiators. Neutralization line can be used, or the parasitic elements can also be used. Okay. In the literature, you will find this type of isolation enhancement techniques. But if you mark all those figures, in every case, you need extra space to keep this the extra element. Okay. So extra space is required, but here is a situation we are discussing the space constraint system, like the situation where you don't have extra space, right? And another demerits of these things are both antenna and decoupling network resonates at overlap frequency. There are situations where, in addition to the radiator, the extra element that you are using, that also sometimes radiate, so they will overlap with the original radiation. Decreases the radiation efficiency, mostly effective in linearly polarized antenna systems. Okay, but when you try to implement these things in circularly polarized antennas, the effectiveness is less. Okay, so ours is a circularly polarized antenna. So what we did is for this antenna, we observed what is the coupling between these two ports. You can find the plot frequency versus phase and mod S21 between two ports, port 1 and port 2. We found that a tight coupling is observed, 3 dB coupling is observed. Okay, so in order to implement this MIMO, this antenna for MIMO, you need to reduce that coupling. So what we have used, these two feed lines are connected a piece of transmission line, and on this line you observe what is the impedance. In simulation, at each point you observe what is the impedance, and at this specific point, the impedance is completely imaginary in nature. Okay, in simulation by trial error method, we found that at this point the impedance is completely imaginary, and that impedance, that imaginary impedance, is capacitive in nature. So what we did, we used an inductor exactly of same value or approximately of same value. So the inductor that we used, that neutralized the capacitance that was there. Okay, so because of this decoupling network, you can find that the isolation, which was previously 3 dB, now it has reduced down to this minus 25 dB. Okay. Can I give you a call after 10-15 minutes? I'm in class.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Because of this, it drastically down to minus 25 dB, meaning there is absolutely no coupling between the two radiations, the two One is LSCP radiation, another is RSCP radiation. So neither there is coupling between the radiated part, nor there is coupling between this feed part. So these two are completely isolated. So as if the antenna is now working as two separate antennas. So this is the final structure of the antenna design. You can find the details of that in the related publication. So this is the fabricated antenna, and that was tested for its suitability to have suitability for MIMO applications. Okay. So those results are here, and it was tested whether we are getting the same the RSCP, LSCP from the two ports or not. That was also tested. Okay. The LSCP, RSCP from port 2, you are getting LSCP from port 1, RSCP. So mathematically, you need to show that there is complete isolation between the two ports. Okay, and by checking the envelope correlation coefficient and active reflection coefficient, you can have this. You can check its suitability for MIMO application. So after having this, so we compared the performance of our antenna with other available structures, and we found that the proposed structure is an effective one, and at the same time, the designing is simple. Okay. So what exactly we did? We used that polarization diversity concept, and both the two polarizations, polarized radiations are working at same frequency. So this antenna can be used for full duplex communication system. Okay. So this is one application. Second is using both polarization as well as the pattern diversity concept. This is another example where these two diagrams that you are observing is basically the two sides of a single PCB seat. Okay, meaning this is one radiator, one antenna. This is another radiator, another antenna. But these, when I am saying these two are printed on two sides of a substrate, two sides of a single substrate, meaning the distance, separation distance between these two radiators is just the thickness of the substrate. Okay. But even then, the two antennas, even though they are placed very near to each other, they are not interfering with each other. Okay. So here we have used both these diversities, pattern as well as polarization diversity concept, because this first thing is pattern concept. Which one? This is this particular radiator. It will radiate in this particular way. It's an end fire radiator. Okay. Whereas this is a broadside radiator. Okay. This one is a broadside radiator. Second thing is this one. So if you observe the patterns of these two antennas, they are not overlapping. Second thing is this is a linearly polarized antenna. This is a circularly polarized antenna. Okay. So all the dimensions were fixed, no doubt, in a trial error method, were fixed in such a way that both the radiators will work in the same frequency range. Okay, both will work in the same frequency range, and but the two radiation patterns are set in such a way that they are not overlapping, okay? Because one is the end fire radiator, another is broadside radiator. Okay? So the detailed dimensions of this planar antenna you can find in this table. So we verified that both the antennas are individually working perfectly when they are actually, when you are exciting both the antennas, they are also perfectly working. See, you can mark the two antennas. In the background, you have the radiation pattern. See, in the gap of one antenna, the other antenna is fixed. The other antenna is fixed. Okay. So, like one radiator, you can mark the presence of the horn type of antenna, which is below, whereas the microstrip radiator, which is a broadside radiator, is above. Okay. So this is radiating away from the screen, this broadside radiator, whereas the other one, which is of horn type, it is having an end fire radiator. Okay. So the three-dimensional radiation patterns and 2D radiation patterns were observed, and these are the performance of the fabricated antenna structures, and the performance of the antenna was tested. So in this case, we have used both polarization diversity as well as the this pattern diversity. Okay. So these are the two typical examples where you can use these antennas specifically where your space is limited. Okay, so for handheld devices and the other devices, similar kind of devices, where you don't have that lambda z by 2 spacing between individual antennas, where this type of system is not possible, you can use this diversity concepts, polarization diversity, in pattern diversity, those concepts, to have effective antennas that can be used for implementation of effective MIMO system. So the details you can find in these publications, design of compact MIMO antennas. But similar kind of work we have compiled and kept in this particular book. So compact antennas for high data rate communication system from Springer. So in this book, we have discussed both UWB as well as the MIMO concept. Those who are interested to start to work in this particular field, this book is a very good one, because you, instead of having a literature survey by collecting individual papers, you will find the compilation of all similar type of work in this single book. Okay, so from that you can start your work after studying this particular book. So thank you very much for your patience hearing. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer that one.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Amlendu Patnaik, for the elaborative and insightful talk on antenna solutions for space-constrained MIMO communication systems. Thank you very much for the session. Dear participants, the session is open for the queries. Sir, one participant, Ramya, asked, the second antenna placed on the ground or they share a common ground?
See, one antenna is acting as a ground for the other antenna in this particular case.
Okay, the second antenna too.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So there is no common ground provided there.
No, no.
Okay. Sir, one more thing. Is there any thumb rule to start with the neutralization line design for isolation enhancement purpose?
Again, it will depend on the frequency. At what frequency you want to block the frequency range which you want to block. Depending on that, you find out the corresponding to the center frequency, find out the lambda, and the size of that neutralization line should be of the order of that lambda.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Are there any literature like books to refer to for having more insight on this neutralization line concept?
Specifically not on neutralization line. There are review type of paper where you can have all type of isolation techniques. See, neutralization line is one such method, right? There are review papers available where you can find all type of isolation enhancement techniques.
Yes, sir. A combination of papers even I could find in the literature. There are 3 papers, literature review papers related to isolation enhancement. Yes.
Yeah, from that you can get the concept. No need to have a separate book on that. Huh?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for the very well explained mode of physics and all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for having me in this particular program. Thank you, the participants, also for your patience hearing. So, shall I wind up now?
Yes,
sir. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation as a resource person, and in future also.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, then. Bye.
Adit, just announce the next session is going to be started.
Yes, dear participants, next session will be started at sharp 12 o'clock. Thanks for joining.